welcome to BYJU'S exam prep. I'm Nivedita Rajay and this is the ultimate last minute revision in which I would be discussing only the most pertinent things जो कि मुझे लगता है कि सबको एक बार रिवाइज कर ही लेनी चाहिए एग्जाम से पहले। तो हम बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल में नहीं जाएंगे, बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेट नहीं करेंगे, बहुत सिंपल सा रखेंगे, जल्दी से इस रिविजन को निपटाएंगे बिकॉज आई नो दैट यू आर in a rush right now with certain assignments or goals that you might have set for yourself. Also, I did release a video asking you guys to tell me the topics that you need revision of. I did not get as much response. I don't understand why. मतलब ये एक अच्छी भी बात है अगर तुम्हें ऐसा लग रहा है कि रिविजन की ज़रूरत नहीं है या फिर मैं अपनी तरफ से सब कर चुकी हूँ और आपको मुझसे कुछ भी और नहीं समझना है. In a way, it's not entirely bad. But then, it's always a good idea to discuss with your faculty or your mentor the topics and the problems that you might be facing. So be open about it. There is no question which is irrelevant right now. Even if you feel that you are stuck or, you're getting last minute jitters or you're getting too anxious and the anxiety is causing you a lot of time and depression, you can talk to me about it. ठीक है, अभी हम 2 दिन है. This ultimate revision will continue tomorrow as well. तो मैं आज का भी टाइम दे रही हूँ तुम सब बच्चों को ये डिसाइड करने के लिए कि कोई भी ऐसी चीज़ है जो तुम अभी भी कर रहे हो और समझ नहीं पा रहे, और if there's a topic that you are still not really clear with और तुम्हें लगता है कि मुझे समझना चाहिए, even if it is a basic topic, guys, do not feel that I would judge you or say कि यार ये तुम्हें ये अब नहीं आता है और कल एग्जाम है. I won't do it. Right? I won't judge you for anything. Nobody is going to do it. Last minute पे या last moment पे ऐसा होता है, बच्चे बिल्कुल बेसिक चीज़ें भूल जाते हैं और ये कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है. Right? So, of course, you can definitely ask your contract out. अगर ये तुम लोग मुझे उस दौरान बताते तो मैं इस पे कंटेंट क्रिएट करती ना. चलो ठीक है, it is the same thing. क्लास में आके भी पूछना is one thing. So we shall discuss that. अभी हम वो चीज़ें डिस्कस कर लेते हैं जो मैंने बना रखी हैं और जिसका कंटेंट मैंने इंक्लूड किया है. उसमें कॉन्ट्रैक्ट भी है. अल्फिया, Nitika's doubt is what is the difference between void and voidable contract. Alfia, you can also post your doubt, and mind you guys, you have time to post your doubt. Tomorrow same time we are having a similar session. So if there are no doubts, then I would be making it a strategic session in which I would be discussing the problems that you might be facing while solving a mock. जैसे कि similar options में अगर तुम अटक रहे हो या फिर अगर क्वेश्चन तुम्हें लग रहा है कि सही नहीं है तो क्या तुम्हें उसे छोड़ देना चाहिए, कब तुम्हें क्वेश्चन बिल्कुल ही नहीं अटेम्प्ट करना चाहिए. So these things. Also we have a marathon on 1st of December. It will start at 11. Do not miss it. It is going to be the last mock of the season that you would get to solve with your faculties. So make sure that you are there. Okay? चलो, सबसे पहले ये एक बच्चे का ही डाउट था. I don't know if she is present here. So the doubt is the presumption of compatibility and consistency between domestic and international law. Basically, presumption of compatibility and consistency is a kind of a doctrine or a kind of a, what should I say, a collaboration between an international law and a domestic law. इसको मैंने बहुत ही सिंपल तरह से लिखा हुआ है, as you can see. ऐसे समझिए कि you convert to a religion, ठीक है, और you choose to renounce the word. आप संन्यास लेने का फैसला करते हैं. It was yours, okay. इसको ऐसे समझते हैं, इससे ज़्यादा सिंपल तरह से नहीं समझा जा सकता. Let's say कि तुम संन्यास लेने का फैसला करते हो, okay, और संन्यास ले लिया तुमने. Somebody renounces the world, becomes a sannyasi. There's a certain life that a sannyasi has to lead, right? You cannot be part of the materialistic world anymore. You cannot continue with your relations. You cannot become part of the hassle that the world incorporates. You're just out of it. The entire purpose of your life is to service or to become of service to the society or to be in service of the God. राइट, आपने सब मोह माया से अपने आप को हटा के रख दिया है और अब आप पूरी तरह से ईश्वर के नाम पर अपनी जिंदगी काटेंगे. यही तो है संन्यास, राइट? तो जैसे ही आदमी संन्यास ले लेता है उसे अपनी पर्सनल लाइफ में चेंजेस लाने पड़ते हैं, राइट? सो ही हैज टू ड्रेस अकॉर्डिंगली, he has to follow certain routine, they have to lead a certain kind of life. तो संन्यास लेने की वजह से अपनी पर्सनल लाइफ में जो भी चेंजेस वो लेकर आएंगे वही है एक बहुत मेजर मैक्रो लेवल पे प्रिजम्पशन ऑफ कंपैटिबिलिटी एंड कंसिस्टेंसी बिटवीन डोमेस्टिक एंड इंटरनेशनल लॉ, right? So what we presume is that we are compatible with all the nations. We are not conflicting with any principle, any ideology or any relationship that we might be sharing because of trade, economy or anything. Military हो सकता है या economical हो सकता है और financial हो सकता है, political हो सकता है, research development भी हो सकता है, ठीक? तो इन सारे के सारे फैक्टर्स की वजह से हम क्या करते हैं, उनके साथ एक पर्टिकुलर रिलेशनशिप मेंटेन करते हैं और उस रिलेशनशिप को केटर करने के लिए हम अपनी पॉलिसीज में, अपनी लॉज में, रेगुलेशंस में कुछ चेंज लाने लगते हैं. सिमिलरली लेट्स से कि इंटरनेशनली एक कन्वेंशन रिलीज हुआ है, राइट? और इंडिया ने उस कन्वेंशन में पार्ट लिया और it became a signatory of that convention. कार्बन एमिशन को रिड्यूस करने का एक पूरा का पूरा कन्वेंशन या कॉन्फ्रेंस था. इंडिया became a signatory to it. Now in order to make sure that the goals and the missions that conference was about or that convention was about, India is doing something in that regard, right? तो इंडिया कहता है कि कोई नहीं, मैं अपने कार्बन एमिशन को इतना कम कर दूंगा इतने सालों तक. वो ऑटोमेटिकली तो नहीं होगा, उसके लिए मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी. आपको सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स पे ध्यान देना पड़ेगा, आपको लॉ स्ट्रिक्ट करने पड़ेंगे. यू हैव टू मेक श्योर दैट पीपल्स एंड फैक्ट्रीज एंड ऑल दोज एंटिटीज हु आर participating or contributing to carbon emission are, they're controlling their activities. So let's say that there's a factory which is releasing pollutants in the river bodies. So you make laws so that factories don't do it. Similarly, there are factories which are run on fuel completely and everything is released in the air or in the natural resource. You wouldn't want that because you are catering to the international convention that you just participated in. So you basically made a promise in front of the entire world that you would be doing a certain thing or you would be acting in a certain way because you participated in that convention or because you favored that particular international principle or regulation or a law, right? So international law, like I said, does not really apply. Non-residential पे क्या बता दूं यार, मेरे को मुझे समझाने तो दो. Let me complete what I'm saying and then you can, ask your doubts. Yes. What just happened? Something happened. Just give me 1 second, everyone. Sorry. Yes. So because you participated in that convention, now you're catering to that convention. The example of this is written right here. It's like when you follow the rules of the club and make sure that your personal life is also being, run that way. It's exactly like, yes, please listen to Namra. She's absolutely right. I do get disturbed. Right, so like the example that I gave to you, you are a part of a sannyas, or you've become a sannyasi, or you've become an ascetic, you have left the world. Now you're supposed to live a certain way. Or let's say that you convert to another religion. You are no longer you no longer wish to follow the faith in which you were born. You wish to convert. And let's say that you converted to Judaism, you become a Jew. So now that you've become a Jew, there's a certain way of life that you'd have to follow. You'd have to eat kosher meals. You'd have to celebrate certain festivals. You'd have to follow or live the life of a Jew. right? So you are actually being compatible and consistent with the religion you chose to convert to. So as a matter of choice, if you wish to follow or adhere to, or participate in an international convention, conference, regulation, law, you need to make sure that that regulation, law, principle, convention, goal, mission is being taken care of by any rule, any policy, or the policy that you would be creating. आप जो भी इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे कर रहे हैं वो आपके इंडियन या फिर आपके डोमेस्टिक लॉज में रिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है, राइट? सो that is what is the presumption of compatibility and consistency between domestic law and international law. So, did you understand? Should I move on to the next topic? Everyone? Ratification, exactly, Namra. It's exactly that. You need to ratify. International law is not mandatorily applicable to any sovereign nation, where the entire meaning of sovereignty would be violated if, an international entity starts imposing. So the thing is that you ratify those laws. There are many laws in India which are a result of that. India participated in conventions that, wanted to eradicate discrimination on the basis of gender. And then came the laws that actually worked in that regard, that, sought to eliminate the discrimination that was embedded in the Indian society. Similarly, the NGT, National Green Tribunal, is a ratification of an international convention only. ठीक है? इतना डिटेल में समझाने के बाद अब शॉर्ट में भी समझा दूं. अगर तुमने इंटरनेशनली कुछ डिक्लेयर किया है, किसी चीज में पार्टिसिपेट किया है, कुछ भी किया है, तो तुम्हारे अपने लॉज में वो पार्टिसिपेशन मैनिफेस्ट होना चाहिए. तुमने एक एनवायरनमेंट के कन्वेंशन में कहा हाँ हम फेवर करते हैं, कार्बन इस दुनिया से वाकई कम होना चाहिए, ये और वो, तो तुम अपने घर आके भूल नहीं सकते इस चीज को, राइट? सारी की सारी कंट्रीज कार्बन एमिशन के रिडक्शन की तरफ बढ़ रही हैं और तुम घर आके भूल गए कि अरे मैंने इस तरह की कोई बात कही थी. नहीं, अब तुम्हें भी पार्टिसिपेट करना पड़ेगा. जैसे बाकी सारी कंट्रीज अपने कार्बन एमिशन को कम कर रही है, तुम्हें भी करना पड़ेगा, वरना सारी दुनिया से कार्बन खत्म हो जाएगा और तुम फिर भी रिलीज कर रहे होगे. दैट इज व्हाट इट इज इन शॉर्ट. ठीक है? Somebody wanted to ask me the meaning of intoxication. Intoxication means being drunk or not being in senses. That is what intoxication is. Now, the place of acceptance is something that students really don't understand. Guys, we understand the overall concept of contracts, right? So, offer and acceptance. We know that offer and acceptance lead to some things. There's an offer and that's how, let me explain. Uske baad questions. So there's an offer and that's how an agreement is initiated, right? That's how we know that we have now initiated or started the process of contract making. You cannot just enter into a contract. No, there's a certain protocol, there's a certain procedure that you have to follow. Now, we understand that it has to start with an offer. It is a compulsory thing. One is proposing. There's a party which is proposing to do something for the other party or to abstain from doing something for the other party. That's how it starts. Now, the act of doing or the act of abstaining something or abstaining from doing something is basically an offer. Ab he made an offer to a certain person, let's call him B. The moment this offer is accepted, we call this an agreement. Although an agreement is not really called a contract unless it becomes enforceable by law. But then the enforceability most of the times is presumed. It exists. For example, if I propose to somebody to buy a house, that I am interested in buying your house at 10 lakh rupees. I'm a major, I would obviously pay consideration, I have a decent object, I mean my object is legal, I wish to stay in that house, right? All the necessary factors that need to be present to make it enforceable: object, consideration, the possibility, the certainty, and everything else, the intention, etc., would make this agreement a contract. And these factors are to be determined later on. I mean, we understand them, but most of the times in a general or a more practical scenario, these factors exist already, right? So we are not really under a mandate to prove them, obviously, because we know कि ये तो exist कर ही रहे हैं. Is my video buffering, guys? Buffer हो रहा है क्या video? Video buffer हो रहा है? नहीं? ओके. हाँ, तो एक प्रैक्टिकल सिनेरियो में जब भी ऑफर और एक्सेप्टेंस होता है, द अदर एलिमेंट्स आर प्रिज्यूम्ड, right? Unless and until one party challenges the contract or an agreement on the basis of void or voidability, the question of these factors does not even come forth. You getting my point? भाई एक पार्टी बेचना चाहती है, दूसरी पार्टी खरीदना चाहती है, बाकी के जो फैक्टर्स है, कंसिडरेशन, ऑब्जेक्ट और सर्टेनिटी और सब कुछ, वो प्रिज्यूम्ड ही होता है, और वो तब तक पिक्चर में नहीं आते जब तक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की वैलिडिटी पर क्वेश्चन ना उठे, राइट? तो प्रैक्टिकल सिनेरियो में या फिर एक यूजुअल सिनेरियो में वी प्रिज्यूम दैट द अग्रीमेंट इज वैलिड एंड इट इज एनफोर्सेबल, thus making it a contract, right? So the moment offer becomes an acceptance, in most of the scenario we call it an agreement, and this kind of agreement, of course with all the factors present, is binding. Until and unless an agreement becomes binding, it does not have a force of law. It cannot be made an imposition. It cannot be compelled to be performed, right? And that exactly is the place where we can say that the contract or an agreement is made. So the place of acceptance is also the place where the contract is made, right? So this is one of the questions that a student needed clarity on. I hope she got it. Shall the promise can be what? I'm not really sure I understand your question. समझ आ गया ये? प्लेस ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस कौन सी होती है? राइट, तो प्लेस ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस क्या होता है? प्लेस ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस वो जगह है जहां पे प्लेस ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस वो जगह है जहां पे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कंक्लूडेड माना जाता है, क्योंकि वहीं पे एक्चुअली कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बाइंडिंग हुआ है. मैंने ऑफर दे दिया, ऑफर तो मैंने दे दिया, लेकिन ऑफर देने से क्या होता है? वो एक फर्स्ट स्टेप है. जब तक कि वो एक्सेप्ट नहीं होगा तब तक, अरे नॉन रेजिडेंशियल व्हाट? आई डोंट इवन नो व्हाट यू आर सेइंग, कार्तिक. Non-residential is the person who doesn't live or does not have a resident at a place in question. That is it. What do I explain about non-residential? मतलब तुम मुझे एक इतना वेग क्वेश्चन है ये. Let me, जब मैंने पूछा था तुम लोगों से when I released the video कि अब अपने अपने डाउट्स मुझे बताइए ताकि मैं उन्हें सॉल्व कर सकूं, तब तुम लोगों ने जवाब क्यों नहीं दिया? अब जिन बच्चों ने जवाब दिया था, आई हैव अ ड्यूटी टुवर्ड्स देम. I need to solve their doubts first because they were obedient and courteous enough to answer, to reply to the video, to understand the purpose of that video. Now that I'm here on a session, you won't even let me finish. What kind of a behavior is that? I'm speaking something right now. I have only one mouth. एक बार में एक ही चीज समझा सकती हूँ, और मैं पहले उन बच्चों के डाउट्स क्लियर करूंगी जो इतने courteous थे कि उन्होंने उस चीज का जवाब दिया. टॉपिक बता दीजिए, पैरामीटर्स क्या होते हैं? एक पैसेज था, मैम मुझे नहीं आता. बेटा मुझे भी ऐसे बिल्कुल नहीं समझ आएगा, ठीक है? तुम जो पूछ रहे हो वो किसी को भी नहीं समझ आ सकता। मतलब कौन सा पैसेज, कहाँ का पैसेज, तुम्हें लगता है जितने पैसेज आए हैं मुझे सारे याद रहेंगे? We are giving around 20 to 100 passages in legal reasoning. How do you think I would be able to recall a passage on non-residential? That is such, that is not even a question. If a person promised to give a gift and the event he is not able to give, is he liable? No. Giving a gift is not a contract unless it is registered. It's a different thing. There's a whole lot concept of contract that needs to be understood in order to make it. Contract is, of course, an obligation to perform or to fulfill promises. If either party does not fulfill the promise they're supposed to, we call it breach. And yes, the person breaching the contract in a way that he cannot really justify it, he will be liable and he can be made to pay the compensation. In short, okay. Right. Okay, moving on. Now, these are the general topics that I wanted to discuss, but before I discuss, let's solve your doubts. Okay, now, one by one. The first doubt that I see right now is Alfia's. If India has ratified some international convention and does not make a domestic law, it violates convention, will it be responsible? Not really. Not really, but it does affect its relationship with other countries and, of course, the international entity who released that convention. There is no legal or penal responsibility in that case. Of course, nobody can punish India. Nobody is ruling India. India is a sovereign country. Right? Nobody can make us liable. But our acts can be questioned on an international platform. And this act would not reflect well on us. Okay? Statutory authority is the authority which is conferred by the law. Doctrine of frustration में damages देने पड़ते हैं? नहीं देने पड़ते. Frustration में liability exemption होता है, मतलब एक reasonable excuse होता है जिसकी वजह से contract breach हुआ. Frustration मतलब contract comes to an end in a scenario where it cannot be really performed anymore. So the extent to which it is performed is the extent to which it is, it is being, there's a period that is put on it. तो जितना परफॉर्म हो गया उतना हो जाने देते हैं, इसके आगे नहीं परफॉर्म करेंगे. ये है फ्रस्ट्रेशन. और आगे क्यों नहीं परफॉर्म करेंगे? क्योंकि उसे परफॉर्म किया नहीं जा सकता, क्योंकि वो फ्रस्ट्रेट हो चुका है, उसे परफॉर्म करना पॉसिबल नहीं है. तो इन दैट सिचुएशन nobody is liable, no compensation is required to be paid. Absolute liability, strict liability, wow. Okay, so strict liability is a situation wherein a person would be liable in a very strict sense. So there are three conditions. One says that a person keeps something dangerous on his land. Right? Dangerous can be anything. Dangerous generally denotes something which is unusual. Okay? Or let's say something which is not of general nature, something which is ordinarily not found on the land. That is what we qualify as dangerous, right? Also, it must have a potential danger. So that is what dangerous is. So someone decides to keep something dangerous on his land. That dangerous thing escapes. And the escape causes harm to a third party. Now, in this situation, where does strict liability apply? Strict liability means a liability which is imposed irrespective of whether the person who is responsible in keeping that dangerous thing was involved or not. So basically, if a person is not really, is not even involved in the concept of, what should I say, or is not even involved in the process of making that thing escape, it escaped on its own. There was really no fault of that person and he did not really do anything to escape it. He was not negligent, in simple terms. The escape happens despite the fact that the person was not really negligent. Despite the fact that he was not negligent and the escape happened on its own, and the escape caused a harm to some person, this person would be strictly liable. He would be made to pay damages no matter what. This is what we call strict liability. But there are situations in which even in which a person can escape the liability. Meaning thereby, let's assume that, the escape was because of a significant earthquake, which is an act of God. Now that we understand the, defenses of tort law, there are defenses which are applicable. So let's say the act of the third party or plaintiff's own fault, voluntary non-fit injuria, or extirpe causa, or statutory authority, or any defense that might be applicable in that scenario. तो strict liability के बावजूद भी A exemption claim कर सकता है. If the person doesn't object, dangerous. If the person doesn't, the object is dangerous, will be still liable. I don't really understand. Right. हाँ, तो पहले मैं इसे समझा दूं. तो अगर कोई ऐसी सिचुएशन है जहाँ पे लेट्स से कि अर्थक्वेक आया इतनी बुरी तरह से कि एग्जाम्पल से समझ लेते हैं. ठीक है, मैं बहुत हैपहैज़र्ड हो गई क्योंकि यू हैव बॉम्बार्डेड मी विद क्वेश्चंस. देयर इज अ रीजन व्हाई आई रिलीज द वीडियो. आई एम एक्सट्रीमली डिसअपॉइंटेड दैट you did not answer that video. I would have content, proper content. Now you're bombarding me with so many questions. I'm completely taken. I thought कि भाई बच्चों को कोई दिक्कत ही नहीं है, पढ़ा वढ़ा के जनरल टॉपिक्स को कवर करके. But no, you clearly have a lot of problems, one after another. Okay, so let's continue with it. So let's say कि a person is storing a certain kind of gas, right? Or let's say he's keeping a wild animal on his land. अब wild animal उसने रख रखा है और अर्थक्वेक आता है बहुत ही बुरी तरह से और पूरा हाउस वगैरह डैमेज हो जाता है और वो जंगली जानवर डर के भाग जाता है. राइट, वो डर के भाग जाता है और डर के भागने के बाद तुम वही बच्चे हो ना जिसने मुझसे पूरी आईटी एक्ट समझाने को कहा था. आईटी एक्ट एंड द रिलेटेड प्रोविजंस. Do you know how detailed that act is? You asked me to explain that entire act. Do you think it is possible in one session? I mean, ask questions which are reasonable. IT Act is not really a part of your syllabus, first of all. And the only concept or the only part of IT Act will be relevant if it was in the news. वरना IT Act में कोई ऐसा concept नहीं है जिसे समझाना पड़े. I was talking about the concepts. Right? हाँ, अब मैं इसे समझाने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ. I'm trying to explain it, but I keep getting lost in the comments. Anyhow, so अब यहाँ पे act of God हुआ. Let's say a person was keeping a hyena. Right? Hyena is a wild animal and there was a huge earthquake that happened which damaged the entire property. To save its life, the hyena escaped. Now in that, panic, it bit somebody in the neighborhood. The rule of strict liability will not apply. I mean, in a normal situation, if the hyena, escaped and bit somebody or did something, then of course the owner of hyena would be responsible. But it only escaped because of that earthquake. Because of that earthquake, the house destroyed, the animal, got scared, and in that panic-stricken zone, it attacked a person. In this situation, strict liability will not apply, and the person who was the owner of the hyena will definitely not be liable to compensate the victim, right? क्योंकि यहाँ पे एक डिफेंस लग गया है. Strict liability में डिफेंस लग सकते हैं, even though the liability is very strict, but a person can still plead a defense if a defense is applicable. In simple terms, absolute liability on the other hand is absolute. Absolute liability is completely absolute, meaning thereby that no matter how involved you were, even if it was an act of God, even if it was an earthquake against which no person could have prepared, even if it was fault of the person who's claiming the compensation, no matter which defense is applicable, you cannot take that defense. It is a liability which is absolutely imposed and you have no escape. So if that thing happens, you are liable no matter what, irrespective of the presence or the applicability of defenses. I'll try to cover all the questions. In a park, if I signed a form admitting all the risk associated with skydiving and participated in it voluntarily, due to malfunction of some equipment, you got severe injuries, park authority, that is negligence. Do you remember voluntary non-fit injuria? Voluntary non-fit injuria can only be claimed when the defendant was not liable in any manner whatsoever, which means that he was not negligent also, right? So, अगर डिफेंडेंट के नेग्लिजेंस की वजह से हादसा हुआ है तो वॉलेंटाइन नॉन फिट इंजूरिया थोड़ी लगेगा. भाई मैं मानती हूँ कि मैंने रिस्क के लिए हामी भरी थी, लेकिन मैंने तुम्हारी नेग्लिजेंस के लिए हामी नहीं भरी थी, राइट? यू कंसेंट टू द रिस्क विच मे नेचुरली अराइज बिकॉज ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर स्पोर्ट और इवेंट और दैट थिंग, but you did not consent to other person's negligence, right? So if the accident happened not because of that sport or the risk per se, but because of the negligence of the defendant, then of course he cannot take the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria. Okay guys, more questions please. I cannot really scroll. Broken net example that I gave in the explanation. Got it? Okay guys, I cannot really scroll through the comments which are, which already have been. I can only see the comments which are coming right now. तो मैंने जो क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर दिए हैं वो तो ठीक है, लेकिन जिन बच्चों को डाउट है वो पोस्ट करना शुरू करो. I am not teaching what I prepared. Let's just deal with the doubts. And we shall repeat the similar exercise tomorrow also. Right? So, but I would want you to answer or, just comment on what it is that you are facing problems with. So that I can, of course, I can clear it, but okay, पहले शुभ्रा का डाउट सॉल्व कर लेते हैं. Right, so this doesn't work. Where is the eraser? The eraser is not working. Let me just go to the to other screen. हाँ, तो शुभ्रा का डाउट है वेजरिंग अग्रीमेंट. All of us are familiar with the concept of betting, shart, right? Every one of us has done it in our lives once or twice, right? Or maybe we do it on an everyday basis. I don't know. So betting basically is also another word for wagering. So when we are betting against something और हम किसी चीज की शर्त लगा रहे हैं और हम किसी ऐसी चीज पे शर्त लगा रहे हैं, we are placing our bet on an event which is out of our control, Right. So if let's say that two persons get into a betting scheme in which one of them says that it is going to rain and the other person says no, it's Sharad Ritu and it won't rain. It just बादल बस गरज रहे हैं, बरसेंगे नहीं, शरद ऋतु चल रही है. And the other person says no, it is going to rain. Now they are placing a bet on an event which is natural, which is completely beyond their control. Whether or not it rains is absolutely out of their potential. Right? तो ये है शर्त, और इस तरह की शर्त जो है वो इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट एक्सेप्ट नहीं करती as an agreement. Right? So whoever wins the bet in this particular situation cannot claim the bet money from another person, because this kind of agreement is not enforceable by law. Why? Because it is based on an uncertain event. Right? When we were understanding the concept of, oh my God. When we were understanding the concept of Indian Contract Act, we did understand the various processes involved. And one of the process said that the agreement or the terms of the agreement needs to be absolutely certain. Right? They need to be completely, or something that can be made out. जिसका परफॉर्मेंस आपके हाथ में है, जिसका परफॉर्मेंस पॉसिबल है, जो इवेंट सर्टेन है, एवरीथिंग. राइट? द इवेंट नीड्स टू बी सर्टेन, इट नीड्स टू बी परफॉर्मेबल, it needs to be something which is possible. All these elements need to be there. So but if you violate these agreements and you wager or something, or place your bet on something on a kind of an event which really is not in your control, you are placing bet, or you are betting money, or you are making the entire focus of your agreement an event which is outside the purview of any human skill. मतलब जिसका होना ना होना आपके हाथ में नहीं है, and it is purely based on luck. ठीक है? इसे वेजरिंग अग्रीमेंट कहते हैं. तो जब आप किसी ऐसे इवेंट पे पैसा लगा देते हैं, या किसी ऐसे इवेंट पे शर्त लगा देते हैं, जो होगा तो आपका लक है, जो नहीं होगा तो भी आपका लक है. मतलब आप पूरी तरह से लक पे खेल रहे हैं. लक इज द मोस्ट अनप्रिडिक्टेबल, अनसर्टेन थिंग in this world. Right? So when you are betting something based on luck, that agreement or that kind of agreement is not really enforceable by law. Right? But if you are betting on a certain thing or an event which is not, the outcome of which is not based on luck, जिसका outcome तुम्हारा भाग्य डिसाइड नहीं करेगा, लेकिन जिसका outcome skill डिसाइड करेगी. अगर तुम जीत जाते हो तो तुम इसलिए नहीं जीते क्योंकि तुम बहुत लकी हो, नहीं, तुम इसलिए जीते क्योंकि तुम्हें उस गेम को खेलना आता है. अगर आप इस तरह के इवेंट पे शर्त लगाते हैं और उस पूरे इवेंट का जो आउटकम है वो आपके लक पे नहीं, स्किल पे डिपेंड करता है, तो ये वेजरिंग अग्रीमेंट भी इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट अलाउ कर देता है. राइट? गॉट इट? If a person has a wife, he is Hindu, he changed his religion to marry a Muslim girl. Naveen, did you participate in the crash course that we took? First of all, it is not valid at all. Absolutely not valid. It is considered to be a loophole which has already been dealt with in a very famous case called 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗪𝗪 versus Union of India. I don't know if you participated in our crash course, but in that crash course, buddy, I did discuss it. Okay, फैमिली लॉ के क्रैश कोर्स में मैंने इसे डिस्कस किया था, और अगर आप चाहें तो इससे रिलेटेड PDF वगैरह हम अपने ऐप पे रिलीज कर देंगे, तो आप उसमें भी जाके देख सकते हो. ठीक है? He'll be penalized by law on the grounds of bigamy. ठीक है? And the second marriage will not be valid. मैं इसे पढ़ा चुकी हूँ। आप ऐसा कर सकते हैं कि इस पे मैंने लेक्चर ले रखा है, आई हैव टेकन अ सेशन ऑन इट एंड द मटेरियल ऑफ इट इज ऑल्सो अवेलेबल। हाँ, डिटेल्ड, क्या बहुत डिटेल्ड है। What is detailed? If this person changes, it is basically 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗹 𝗥𝗲𝗀 versus Union of India. I'm not sure if you will be able to understand it, but I will release a PDF on it. ठीक है, मैं एक PDF रिलीज कर दूंगी जिसमें आपको 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗪 से रिलेटेड नेसेसरी कंसेप्ट मिल जाएंगे, जिसे पढ़ के आप समझ सकते हैं. Also, the child who is asking me to brief upon the Arbitration Conciliation Act, no, it would take hours, right? But I can help you in a certain regard. I can list out that act in a briefest manner possible, and you can download the PDF from our app. Can you do that? इतना कर सकते हो तुम लोग? ठीक है, सेशन लेने लग गई तो फिर तो 12 बज जाएंगे और सेशन नहीं खत्म हो पाएगा और किसी का भी डाउट नहीं सॉल्व हो पाएगा. So let's just do that. You just download the app and I'll make sure that the PDF is available till tonight before 12. And the questions that I haven't been able to answer will be available on the app in the form of a PDF. उसे download कर लो और उसे पढ़ लेना. Does that work for everyone? Comment in the box. Yes? Good. Condition for an agreement to be void. Do you understand the basic of the Contract Act? Srijini Das Gupta, do you understand the basic of the Contract Act? How does an agreement become a contract? Do you know that? Srijini, am I pronouncing it right? No, I just want you to be confident, buddy. Seriously. है ना, पैसेज अगर आ जाता है तो मैं बिल्कुल नहीं चाहती तुम ये सोचो कि मैंने मैम से पूछा था और मैम ने मुझे बताया नहीं. राइट, मैं ये रिग्रेट बिल्कुल नहीं बर्दाश्त करना चाहती हूँ. तो आई विल ट्राई टू डू एवरीथिंग इन माई पावर टू हेल्प यू. Right, all you need to do is just make sure that you open the app and download the relevant material. So right now I have two content points. एक 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗪 वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया है जो कि मुझसे नवीन ने पूछा है, एक मुझसे मानवी ने पूछा है आर्बिट्रेशन कंसिलिएशन एक्ट का थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ. तो ये दोनों मेरे पास हैं, तो ये इसका आपको PDF मिल जाएगा. और बाकी अगर और कुछ है तो तुम मुझे यहाँ पे बता सकते हो. जितना मैं सेशन में बता सकती हूँ उतना मैं बता दूंगी और बाकी उस PDF में लिख दूंगी. बिल्कुल, आई विल राइट इट इन द सिंपलेस्ट मैनर पॉसिबल. इट विल बी लाइक यू आर रीडिंग अ स्टोरी, राइट? और तुम बस उस एग्जाम्पल को पढ़ना और तुम्हें एकदम समझ आ जाएगा. ठीक है, यू नो हाउ आई टीच, सो द कंटेंट विल मैनिफेस्ट माई स्टाइल. मिसरिप्रेजेंटेशन एंड यू, अच्छा, यू आर सेइंग दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड, राइट? तो चलो, नाउ दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड, लेट्स, आई एम अज्यूमिंग दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड. ठीक है, ऑफर प्लस एक्सेप्टेंस इज इक्वल टू प्रॉमिस. According to ICA, every promise is an agreement. An agreement becomes a contract when it has a lawful consideration and object. और बताना शुरू करो, come on guys. On the app, YouTube पे PDF नहीं दिया जा सकता ना, हम अपनी ऐप पे कर सकते हैं ये सब, लेकिन YouTube पे कैसे करेंगे? चलो बताना शुरू करो. An agreement to become a contract needs to have certain elements. So the first element is that it needs to have a lawful consideration and a lawful object. What else? What else? Jaldi jaldi. Hurry up, people. नहीं आता? Parties need to be major, which means above 18. Sorry. Right? They needs to be in their senses, which means their mental faculties have to be completely fine. They cannot be intoxicated, they cannot be mentally retarded, they cannot be inebriated, they cannot be mentally sick, they cannot have, a mental disorder that causes them to have improper faculties such as Alzheimer's, dementia. They cannot be physically that sick that, their mind has become weak. So these are lawful consideration, lawful object, majority, and of course, the fact that their mental faculties are completely upright. And again, the promises should be possible. You cannot make a promise which is not possible to perform. Then, the terms of the contract need to be completely certain. Completely certain. Right? You know exactly what it is that you have to do. And the other person is also very, very clearly aware of what he has to do. So both of you are very clear with the terms of the contract. That is a certain contract. Then the intention. The fact that you entered in a contract and that contract or that agreement has a legal connotation, which means that in an event of breach, one of you would be liable to pay. Right? So these are the factors that need to be present. The moment these factors become present, an agreement becomes a contract, which means that it is enforceable by law. एनफोर्सेबल बाय लॉ का सिंपल मतलब ये होता है कि अब उसमें जो चीज लिखी हुई है आप उनको कोर्ट में जाके क्लेम कर सकते हैं. राइट? अगर आपको वो चीजें नहीं मिली तो फिर आप शिकायत कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि वो चीजें जो लिखी है अब वो आपका राइट बन गई हैं. एनफोर्सेबल बाय लॉ का मतलब यही है कि अग्रीमेंट पे अब जो भी लिखा हुआ है यू कैन क्लेम इट एज अ मैटर ऑफ राइट if you're not able to get it, but you can only claim it when these factors are present. Right? And now let's talk about the beginning. Offer, acceptance, lawful consideration object, majority, competency, certainty, possibility, intention. If any of these factors is not present, that agreement will not be a contract. And in that situation, we call that agreement void. मतलब it will never become a contract. एक अग्रीमेंट जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं बन सकता, या वो अग्रीमेंट जिसपे जो लिखा है वो लीगली एनफोर्सेबल नहीं है, एक ऐसा कागज का टुकड़ा जिसे आप कचहरी ले जाकर या कोर्ट ले जाकर ये नहीं कह सकते कि माय लॉर्ड इस पे जो लिखा है मुझे दिलवाएं, क्योंकि माय लॉर्ड आपको नहीं दिलवाएंगे, क्योंकि जो उस पे लिखा है वो आपका अधिकार नहीं है. ये अग्रीमेंट फिजूल कागज का टुकड़ा है, ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं है और ये अग्रीमेंट वॉइड है. समझ गए? void ab initio, exactly. No, absolutely not. Parth, Paras, this is very, very wrong. Absolutely wrong. Any of the element, if it is missing, then the agreement. We are not talking about the contract. It won't even reach the contract. का मतलब ये है कि agreement enforceable है. The fact that the agreement is a contract means that the agreement was valid, that it was enforceable by law. That is why we call it a contract. Right? It will not reach that stage if it is not valid. Right? So the moment all these factors are present, we call it a contract. If any of these factors goes missing, we call it an agreement which is void. And since it is void because of a basic defect, it is void since the beginning. मतलब वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कभी बना ही नहीं, मतलब वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कभी बनेगा ही नहीं, वो शुरू से ही बेकार है, वो महज कागज का टुकड़ा है जिसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. तो ये है अग्रीमेंट विच इज वॉइड एब इनिशियो. अब आ जाते हैं वॉइड एबल पे. कंसेंट समझते हैं हम सब. right? Consent का मतलब है when both the parties are agreeing to a same thing in the same sense, right? They do not have any lack of communication, any ambiguity. I mean, they are in an agreement because they wanted to, right? And they have no doubt regarding that. They're completely clear with what they want. That is what we call consent, right? जब आप अपनी मर्जी से अपनी पूरे होश हवास में किसी चीज के लिए हाँ कहते हैं, तब हम कहते हैं कि हाँ आपने हामी भर दी है. That is what we call consent. अब कुछ सिचुएशन में the consent is not deemed to be a proper consent, or it is not deemed to be a consent in the Indian Contract Act. So if a consent is adulterated by fraud, misrepresentation, undue influence, what else was there? Coercion, fraud, misrepresentation, undue influence, coercion. Anything else that I might be missing? I already wrote misrepresentation. I already wrote undue influence. This is what I wrote. I wrote fraud. I wrote misrepresentation. I wrote undue influence, and I wrote coercion, and of course mistake. But it has to be a unilateral mistake. Right, a unilateral mistake. I mean, a mistake that was made by one party. Coercion is dhamki, yes. So, in an event where because of these factors, a person gave or said yes. अगर एक आदमी ने हाँ बोला, लेकिन वो उसने इसलिए हाँ नहीं बोला क्योंकि वो बोलना चाहता था, इसलिए हाँ बोला क्योंकि उसे चीट कर रहा था कोई, या उसके पास पूरे फैक्ट्स नहीं थे, he was misguided or misrepresented, or he was under an influence, right? He was saying it under a certain kind of pressure. It might be a pressure because of relation or anything. Or he might be saying yes because he's scared, coercion, he's being coerced. He's saying it under a duress. Or he's saying it because he is under a mistake of certain things. So the moment any of these factors are given, and the presence of these factors make a person to consent to something, that agreement or that contract actually is called voidable. अब इसको तोड़ लेते हैं, let's break it. Voidable. अब कंसेंट है, राइट? कंसेंट गड़बड़ है, बाकी सारे फैक्टर्स तो हैं, कंसिडरेशन भी है, ऑब्जेक्ट भी है, सर्टेनिटी भी है, पॉसिबिलिटी भी है, इंटेंशन भी है, सब कुछ है, राइट? ऑल दीज एलिमेंट्स आर प्रेजेंट. बस एक चीज नहीं है, क्या? कंसेंट नहीं है, राइट? और कंसेंट जो है वो प्योर नहीं है, अडल्टरेटेड है. उसे फ्रॉड ने, मिसरेप ने और फैक्टर्स ने अडल्टरेट कर रखा है. आईसीए कहता है कि इसके बावजूद भी अग्रीमेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बन जाएगा, राइट? कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वॉइड नहीं होता. समझ रहे हो तो मेरी बात? अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इज नॉट वॉइड. इट मे बिकम वॉइड, बट इट मे ओनली बिकम वॉइड अंडर अ सर्टेन सिचुएशन, राइट? So in a situation where the consent is not free, the contract may become void also. अब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वॉइड सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक ऑटोमेटिक सिचुएशन में एक्सेप्टेबल है, मतलब तुम्हारा उसको तोड़ने में कोई हाथ नहीं था. इन अ नॉर्मल सिनेरियो, इफ अ पार्टी फेल्स टू परफॉर्म अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट or refuses to perform a contract, the party is liable for a breach. The party is liable to compensate the other party, except in this situation. In this situation, if a party refuses performance, the party will not be liable for any breach. Why? Because that party's consent was obtained through any one of these factors. ठीक है? एक नॉर्मल सिचुएशन में अगर पार्टी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट परफॉर्म करने से मना कर देती है तो उसके ऊपर ब्रीच का चार्ज लगता है और उसे कंपनसेशन देना पड़ता है। हाँ, लेकिन इस सिचुएशन में अगर पार्टी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट परफॉर्म करने से मना भी करते तो ब्रीच का चार्ज नहीं लगता। क्यों? क्योंकि वो एक ऐसे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का पार्ट है जो वैलिड भी है और वॉइड भी हो सकता है। क्यों वॉइड हो सकता है? क्योंकि कंसेंट फ्री नहीं था। तो जिस पार्टी का कंसेंट फ्री नहीं था, अगर वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट परफॉर्म करने से मना कर दे तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वॉइड हो जाएगा और दूसरी पार्टी पर लाइबिलिटी भी नहीं आएगी ब्रीच की। इस तरह के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को वॉइडेबल कहते हैं। अ वैलिड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दैट मे ऑल्सो बिकम वॉइड। ठीक है? Mistake of fact essential to the contract. Okay, I'm ending the session right now. It has already been an hour. मेरे पास अभी सिर्फ 2 ही क्वेश्चंस हैं जिनका कंटेंट मैं डाल रही हूँ। अगर आपके और क्वेश्चंस हैं तो आप मुझे कमेंट बॉक्स में, इसी कमेंट बॉक्स में यू कैन रिप्लाई, right? If you have any more questions, you can reply to me in the same comment box. I shall either release the PDF or will take that question tomorrow at the same time, right? Yes, so we'll deal with the question. I have the same session tomorrow as well. The same session, same time at 8 p.m. Right, so we can deal with the questions tomorrow also. It has already been... Okay, right, so anybody who still has a doubt remaining can just post it in the comment box. Post it in the comment box, वरना मैं नहीं समझा पाऊंगी और वो डाउट हमेशा के लिए रह जाएगा। तो थोड़ा प्रोएक्टिव बनिए, be a little proactive. Make sure that you are posting your doubt in the comment box so that I can, solve it. It's very necessary. And I shall see you again tomorrow. तब तक सब अपना ख्याल रखेंगे. And the PDF will come out tonight. अगर अच्छे से तैयारी करी है तो हाँ, बिल्कुल सिलेक्शन हो सकता है, right? Okay guys, please, what's a good score in legal depends on how difficult the legal section is. Completely dependent on that, right? I shall see you again tomorrow. Do not fail to post your doubt, otherwise the haphazard will cause you to suffer. इतना bombardment हो जाता है comments का कि वो सब जो questions हैं वो पीछे चले जाते हैं और मेरे सामने जो क्वेश्चंस होते हैं मैं उन्हीं को आंसर कर पाती हूँ। तो उसकी वजह से सफ़र ना करें। लेट मी प्रिपेयर सो दैट आई एम नॉट bombarded with questions and not able to answer. So just लीगल का स्कोर ऐसे प्रेडिक्ट नहीं किया जा सकता है बच्चे। एग्जाम में लीगल का सेक्शन जिस तरह का है उस पर गुड स्कोर होता है। वो बहुत ईजी हो सकता है, बहुत डिफिकल्ट हो सकता है, बीच का कुछ हो सकता है। तो जब तक तुमने कोई चीज टेस्ट नहीं करी है तब तक तुम कैसे बता सकते हो कि वो अच्छी है या बुरी, या उसको कितने नंबर मिलने चाहिए? यू हैव टू फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट इट, राइट? Right, so I shall see you again tomorrow. Do not forget to comment everyone. Good night. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.